know if it's my phone.
Oh, okay, some static. Well,
A
peace
little
and
bit
love.
when you speak, but hopefully.
Okay. Peace and love, everyone. Welcome to my channel. If you're new, please like and subscribe. And we are here this evening on this Monday, this moon day, and want to say thank you to everyone that's joining us, family. So this evening we're having a very important topic that needs to be had, and there is a lot of pressure out here to look good according to society's standards. Most of this pressure is put on women. And you know the saying that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, as the old saying goes. But who is doing the beholding? And for centuries across many different cultures, women were expected to conform to their culture standards of beauty. Women were judged by their beauty and expected to do what was considered beautiful by their society. So things like piercing the nose, facial tattoos or scarring, travel markings, foot binding, teeth blackening, skin lightening, corsets, stretching your earlobes, the lips, heavy neck rings, force feeding to gain weight, depriving others of food to lose weight, shaved heads, long hair, etc., etc. And all these things were intended to make a woman look acceptable by their culture standards. Some of this pressure was put on girls at very young ages, and body image means a lot in our society, and as well as others. For example, when people go to weddings, they always talk about how beautiful the bride look, and we're seeing um, just in this modern society that we're living in, a lot of women are doing things like altering their bodies, modifying it to fit this image, this body image, that their body has to look a certain way. And if it doesn't, they're willing to go under the knife and have surgery, which I think is a little drastic, but this is what is happening. And so, what message are we sending our girls and our boys about what is attractive? Are we sending the right message to our children? People say looks aren't everything, but how many people really believe that? And because the people are praised or known for how they look and how they present themselves, so people say looks. So the message that we're conditioning our children, especially our girls, to believe about themselves and their beauty is body shaming, causing people to be scarred for life. So tonight we're going to delve into this topic and we're going to explore it with our beloved guest, Sister Queen Netfah of Simply Netfah Philly. Welcome, welcome, Queen.
Thank you for having me, Sister Smile.
Thank you, thank you. It's always a pleasure. I think we've had you on the show before, but it's
Yeah,
always
it's been a while. I know we
yeah,
tried
it's
it.
been a
We missed
while.
a couple of
Yeah.
times this go around, so I'm glad we finally were able to make it happen on
Yes,
this new moon energy in Taurus.
yes, good moon, you new moon in Taurus, and so I think Taurus rules beauty, doesn't it?
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
it does. Oh,
Yeah.
so that was right in divine timing then.
Yep.
Yeah, so give thanks for that. And it's always an honor to be in your presence. So let's
Likewise.
take a moment. Thank you, Queen. If you could just share a little bit about yourself to the listening audience for people who are not aware of who is Simply Netfah.
Sure. So my name is Nefa Mina Afia. I am a raptologist and a holistic clothing designer. I'm a healer and a creative. I'm actually in my shop in Philly. I live in West Philly. And the shop is called I9 Collective. It's a Black and Brown artisan collective. So a lot of Black and Brown artisans practicing slow fashion. A lot of the fashions are here on the shelves. And I'm a healer first, and my tool of expression is adornment. And so I teach it from, basically, creating pieces that nurture and beautify a woman's sacred body temple from head to toe, from the crown of her head to, all the way down to her toes. And I teach, the art of adornment from a mindful, conscientious perspective, how to adorn ourselves in a way that energizes ourselves, our person. Traditionally, and from the age of antiquity, everything we put on our body had meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And so we very clear that however we express ourselves, our uh, way of adorning ourselves is an outward expression of the inner consciousness. And
Mm,
so, just kind of like, giving women primarily and men too an opportunity to revisit, the value in their dress and what their dress is saying about them, what it
mhm,
says about us, what we wanted to say about us, what values do we want to exude in our way of expressing ourselves through adornment, and how to do so in a way that's more mindful, conscientious of Mother Nature's offerings, and
mhm.
sustainable fashioning, ethical fashioning, and how to really use clothing as a transformational experience, since we have to get dressed every day.
I like it. The clothing is a transformational experience. I know I never quite thought of it like that, but now, from now going forward,
Mm-hmm.
getting dressed or choosing what I'm wearing for the day, I'm gonna think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'll ask you to join us in this topic because you adorn people. And so when I think about beauty or beautifying oneself, I think about you and the work that you do. So can you explain to us what adornment means? You did a little bit in the introduction, but
Right. So again, it's adornment for me is a way of expressing ourselves externally, right? From head to toe, from whatever we might put on our head to the clothes to the jewelry that we adorn ourselves with. I use that word adornment very naturally when I speak about getting dressed, dressing ourselves, clothing ourselves. I utilize the word adornment because we are adorning this vessel that we walk in.
mm,
And, we have different ways of expressing ourselves, different ways of adorning ourselves that are extensions of our culture, our societal norms, things like that. Even to your point, tomorrow, which we know we'll talk about a little further, our standards of beauty, oftentimes it is a reflection of what is expected of us. Sometimes it's a reflection of our artistic or cultural expression, or our relationship with our divine, so we clothe ourselves for so many different reasons, well past the basic human need of adornment or clothing,
mm,
um, which is to protect ourselves from the element, right? And so through adornment, we're kind of taking that basic, primitive, you know, human need for food, clothing, and shelter, one of the basic human needs to adorn us, to clothe ourselves, and just taking it to the next level, offering some artistic expression to it, possibly some of our own personalized, individualized, um, creativity to it.
mhm,
And so when I speak of adornment, I am speaking about the whole temple and
mhm,
how we present ourselves.
mhm. That makes sense. Very good. And so adornment is a form of beautifying a person because it's like you said, it's the outward expression of them, correct?
Right, our inner consciousness,
Of your
yes.
inner conscious.
Oftentimes, I mean, certainly there's times where you kind of subjugate to having to wear certain things, but we're talking on a freedom level where you get to decide what you wear. You're not
Mhm,
subjugated by another force that's oppressing you or dictating what you have to wear. You're not in a uniform necessarily.
mhm,
Then it can become more individualized for sure.
mhm, mhm. Very good. Okay. Interesting. Um, in your line of work, do you find a lot of people, especially women? I know you do a lot more with the sistren, but do you find that women have negative self images when it comes to their sense of beauty?
I would say I can't speak for non-melanated women as much as
Hmm.
I can for melanated women, but I would say in our community, yes, women definitely have um, an idea of beauty that is not self-defining, you
Mm,
know, and that's something that so it can be very unhealthy for sure, because it's set to a standard that is not um, empowering for us
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes in this society. In this society,
The society standard of beauty is not empowered.
right? In this society,
Okay. Yeah, that
certainly in other
makes.
societies, it might be something different. This one here, I would agree.
So, do you find that women of color, the melanated women that you mostly work with, do you find that they have more negative body images or more negative feelings of their beauty?
I would say yes. I would say many of us still are pushing through standards of beauty that we do not identify with, or I should say this, that we still have some negative um, um, perspective of our own beauty based on the standards of beauty that have been presented to us in
Mhm.
society over the years. So we are still working through that. There's definitely women who are, especially as of late, are kind of defining their beauty for themselves.
Mhm.
Um, but we have a lot of hangups still. You know, Jim Crow
Yes.
did a great number on us,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
from the complexion of our skin to our body type to our hair, to,
Mhm.
and you know, has often not only do you have are we working through the residue of our standard of beauty based against the white woman and the Caucasian woman, non-melanated woman, right?
Mhm.
Then we have our own within our tribe, the lighter hue, the darker hue, the wavy hair, the nine-ether hair,
Mhm.
the voluptuous build, the trim build, right? And the full lips, so we still have a lot that we're working through for sure.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Um, well, this kind of question is kind of overlapping, but do you find it more difficult for women of color to feel attractive in this society? And I personally think yes, it is more, but it's changing now. I think personally because mostly because of Instagram and social media, and social media has provided a platform for women from diverse backgrounds to express their beauty, to model, because now it's like anybody can be a model. Like when I was growing up, there was this high standard. You had to be very slim, you had to be very tall, you had to look a certain way. Now, that has changed, and more people are using social media to express themselves. And you're seeing the diversity in models now. Like
Right.
there's even a sister I've seen that has vitiligo. You're seeing women of color. Like one time I saw a picture, it was some kind of awards program, like film awards, and it was some native indigenous women accepting the awards, and they had put their, they had their tattoos on their faces that, their tribal tattoos, for lack of a better term, um, to identify them. And at one time you didn't see things like that. People were very conservative, or at least try to be, and now standards are starting to change.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I definitely can attest to the same things.
Mhm.
Um, and I knew the names of the models that we're speaking of, because then you have
Yeah.
the one at the Village, then you have the one at albino, you have the albino,
Hmm.
I forget her name.
Hmm.
And then you have Alec Weck. I don't even know if she's still modeling now, but that was probably like 20 years ago when Alec
Yes.
came on the scene. She's almost blue black, short hair, full lips.
And very
um,
tall.
just really opened up the door for
Hmm.
women of color, of a much darker hue
Hmm.
to enter into the scene. So yeah, it's certainly those shifts in society's
Hmm.
identification of beauty certainly have been helpful,
Hmm.
as we continue to work through our own stuff,
Mm-hmm.
with our hang-ups that come out that sometimes don't show up until on the surface. They'll show up like subtly later on, or you
Yes.
know, kind
Mm-hmm.
of like the radar initially. But
Yes.
it's good to see though. But like to your point, and the younger generation too. The younger generation is not really. They are not being defined by the standards of old.
Mm-hmm.
Like the waif model that's anorexic looking, and they're busting out, voluptuous and on and all their, all their assets and everything. And it's good to see that.
Yes, it is. It is good to see it. It's changing, and
Mhm.
um, you see. I think you see women of color and people of color in general represented more in society, not just in social media, but also in commercials. I'm not a television watcher, but I noticed that you're starting to see us represented more. And especially, I also noticed, I started seeing it in the 1990s, but you're still seeing it now, is a lot of the models and the people, the representations that you see of us. Like sometimes I'm out and I'll see an advertisement on the side of a bus or bulletin board or an ad somewhere, and you're starting to see more diversity in people of color, and you're also beginning to see more of us wearing our natural hair,
Mhm. Right.
and which I think is great. And I think that is starting to change the way we feel about our beauty and how society is accepting that.
Agreed. I agree with everything you're saying. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk a brief minute about how society standards of beauty keep changing, and women are feeling the pressure to conform to them. Because, like, I remember when I was growing up as a little girl, there was only a few melanated models. Iman was one. Beverly Johnson was still modeling, but and Naomi Campbell, they were like really popular when I was growing up. And each of them is, have a similar body frame. They're tall, and it's like in order to be a successful runway model, or back in the days, you had to look a certain way. Now, what's considered beautiful now is like all the fullness and the voluptuousness, and this is why I think a lot of women are resorting to having cosmetic surgery to change their bodies, because that slim look is not what's really popular right now. A lot of people want the full figure. They want the ample, well endowed body parts, and so they're willing to go as far as having surgery. And also there's a lot of people wearing more artificial things like eyelashes, um in addition to the long hair. That's in now, the long hair weaves, the long
Mhm.
braids. And I hear a lot of men saying that women wear a lot of fake things now, is too much artificial stuff. But the women who don't look like that, they feel pressured to look like that. Um, and I remember when I was in school growing up, girls got bullied a lot if they didn't look a certain way, if their hair wasn't a certain texture, or if it was short, and all the teasing. It seemed like girls got teased more for how they look and how their body, how they were shaped. And I think that's a contributing factor to why so many women are feeling the pressure to have the surgery. What do you think about that?
I think that you certainly have a segment of society, for the younger women
Mhm,
who are, until there's something to be said about having knowledge of self,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
And when you don't have knowledge of self, you fall easy prey to the shape shifting of um, trends and um, societal influences, like what we're talking about, right?
mhm,
To be accepted. to fit in, to you know, um, meet with appeal from your peers and that sort of thing. And so certainly, that peer pressure has always been there during the formative ages, right? Or formative ages. And there is a pressure to kind of fit in and look the part or meet the appeal. And, you know, so that's where you start seeing this kind of influence take hold, right? This kind
Mm-hmm.
of pressure take hold to, you know, again, look the part
Mm-hmm.
that we think is what, especially in the case that we're talking about here, maybe that your compliment, if you're a female, that the men want you to look, right? And it's and the funny part, the interesting part about that though, that is we really have so much more power in that lane than we know.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we decide that short natural hair is going to be fly, if
Mm-hmm.
we decide that woman, the men will think it's fly. If
Right.
we decide on our own that, not um, um, wearing so much makeup and the big eyelashes and the fake hair, like if we decide that our authentic self is beautiful enough and we're, kind of like pushing the narrative of the self-defining beauty, all natural beauty in and of itself, the men that we might be trying to appeal to will gravitate towards it. And that's how it's always been, but we don't know that. A lot of young ones don't know that. And so we give into the dictates
Mm-hmm.
of, you know, the industry that says that this is what beautiful is and this is what sexy is and this is what if you look like this, then you can achieve that and you can get this.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where again, we have a lot more power than we think we do. And it was a time, like I think it was maybe like 2 years ago, I might be wrong. Help me out on this tomorrow,
Okay.
where there was like this campaign for natural beauty. And I remember that Alicia Keys, a lot of celebrities were showing how they look without their makeup on and showing how
Mm-hmm.
they embrace their beauty, their natural beauty. And I
Yes.
think that took hold. It was great to see. I think it was very powerful. It had its time, and maybe like any other trend,
Mm-hmm.
some people stuck with that. Some people, like some women, saw that and really embraced it and kept it going for themselves, and it became like their MO moving forward. And some, it just kind of was the phase that it was and went back out again. But I thought that was a really powerful
Mm-hmm.
initiative and
Mm-hmm.
movement for however an impacted woman. Um, because and it's like I said, it's like any other trend. Like when we were younger, certain ways, certain trends that we try to fit into, and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of meet the appeal, or just to kind of you know be part of the
Yeah.
in fashionable.
Mm-hmm.
And then certainly when we come out of those formative years, we come, now we're out of high school. To some degree, we define our own selves and could care less about that. But that's why it's so important to really have these kind of conversations and opportunities to really define ourselves and our beauty by our own beauty standards as early as possible. To instill it if we have children that are following us, to instill it and to create conversations around it for the young daughters that might be listening to us, or looking for this kind of narrative for their own approval.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. Um, you have a very unique sense of style, and many of us have to find our own style outside of the dominant culture and its standards. How do you draw inspiration for your style?
certainly um, from my cultural heritage, right? I can look to the continent and certainly find inspiration in indigenous wear and um, the design concepts of a lot of Eastern cultures. I have always been kind of drawn to that. I am drawn to anything that looks comfortable.
Mhm.
I love the free flowing pieces where,
Yes.
kind of like moves with your body and that sort of thing. I draw inspiration from that. I draw inspiration from nature,
Mm,
just kind of how nature unfolds. Like when you look at, flowers and plants and just, the forms of life's creations, it's so unique in of itself. And there's this inspiration to be found in that too, believe it or not, even though we're talking about clothing on our vessels, but
mhm,
nature inspires me. But really, again, I it's the indigenous cultures of
mhm,
Africa, but also some of the Eastern cultures. When you look at
mhm,
the Japanese, and a lot of their design concepts are based on manipulation of fabric more so than um, uh, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Like intrusiveness with fabric. So there's a lot of folds and
mhm.
bends and pleats and wrapping, and I've always gravitated towards that kind of natural fluidity when it comes to
Mm,
adornment.
yes, and fabrics.
Yeah,
'Cause the clothing also enhances how you feel too. It's not just
it's a
only how you look.
relationship.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Clothing can we bring energy to the clothing and clothing brings energy to us. It
Mm,
really is this is it's a relationship. It
mhm,
really is. There was a study I was just reading the other day. They did this study where they had two groups of people. And one group they put and they would test. I'm trying to make sure I have it right. They had two groups of people,
mhm.
and both of them had strong IQs. Like they were, intelligent beings,
Okay.
and they had them take an IQ test of some sort,
Okay.
right? Then they separate the group and put doctor coats, the white coats, on
Mhm.
one group and not the other.
Okay.
And the group that had the white coats on tested higher the second time around than the
Mm,
group that didn't have the doctor's coats on. Because when they put that doctor coat on, they just this ownership of that uniform, right? The
oh, okay.
doctor's coat, and what, we don't think about that. And it was for clarity, it was a medical exam. Like I said, IQ,
Okay.
forgive, it was like a medical exam type of thing,
No, no,
or
yes.
test, quiz. And so they tested higher once when they had the coats on, which is so, because theoretically, the coat can't really make you smarter, right? So
Mhm.
what is happening in that exchange? What is happening at that time that increases the scores of those who had the coat on as opposed to those who didn't, right?
Mhm.
But it's this thing, and we've all had this experience when you put certain clothes on,
Mhm.
you kind of take on the energy of, especially if it's a uniform, of that garment. And
Yes.
in other cases, again, we also bring energy to certain garments. So I find I find all that very, very fascinating. Simply because I've been in that industry for well over 30 years. The fashion
Wow.
textile industry,
Mhm.
and so I have a relationship with textiles that's been with me all my life. You know.
Mm. Amazing. Yeah. I know when you talk about the energy we bring to clothes, I know that certain colors make me feel different.
Yeah.
Certain colors affect, I guess, my mood, and so I know I feel different when I wear certain colors. One of the reasons why I wear white a lot is I feel um I feel energized when I wear it.
Okay.
It just makes me feel elevated, makes me feel higher, feel better, feel more alive, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Something and some other colors too. I noticed that when I wear them, I feel different, especially if I'm, feeling a little down or just not feeling, not having the best day possible. Sometimes if I wear like a brighter color, a lighter color, the yellows, the pinks or something, sometimes it does elevate my mood, helps me feel better.
Right. Yeah. No, it's we were talking. No, I was going to ask you with the white. Do you feel when you wear white? Do you feel more armored up, like
Yeah,
protective?
maybe that. Yes, I think so. Yes.
Mhm.
I feel
Yeah.
protected. I do feel elevated.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. We were talking about that in the previous call I had. We were talking about white, like how that white, is especially for us on a spiritual level. You feel kind
Yeah.
of armored up in white, you know,
Yes.
like it's protected in color to be kind of, you know, endowed in or embraced by.
Hmm. Yes, I do. Yes, definitely. Definitely. All right. What are some suggestions for some ways we can relearn ways to celebrate our beauty for both men and women?
What was the question?
How can we relearn how ways to celebrate our beauty?
Certainly by looking at looking at other images of us that look like us and
Hmm.
are held in high regard.
Mm.
So if I wanted to help to redefine or offer a healthier perspective on beauty to somebody, I would take, you know, I would show them images that look like them, that are held in high regard or, presented in high regard or, um, you know, bring them back to historical figures that represent their lineage or their tribe or something they can connect to and um, willfully, by seeing that reflection in this way that appeals to them and is beautifying to them, or represents a beautiful um, image to them, they
Okay.
can then also own that for themselves, or at least begin to make that connection for themselves. And
Mm.
honestly, truly, knowledge of self, I mentioned it earlier, is
Yes.
is such a key though. Like when you know yourself, when you can define yourself for yourself, which takes time, it's not something that everyone has access to so easily in the tribes they're in, the communities they're in, or the language that has been handed down to them, or the narrative that has surrounded them. But that knowledge of self, it reminds us of just how superficial this can be, just how fleeting this can be. I can have someone give me compliments all day, but I'm really clear that, right at the that last compliment, I could step out in the street and get hit by a bus or something. Heaven forbid.
Mm-hmm.
But it could change this whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then where would my sense of, you know, a defining beauty for myself be if I just
Mm.
kept it on the surface thing, you know? It's
Yes. Yes.
amazing how it's amazing how this vessel that we put so much attachment to when we think about beauty,
Mm-hmm.
how it can almost shift 180 when your personality is real funky,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or you got a really ugly, you know, disposition
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Just the opposite. If maybe this here doesn't meet the quote unquote standards of beauty that society puts on it,
Mm-hmm.
but they have this amazing personality and this
Mm-hmm. And
beautiful
their heart
spirit,
is good. Yeah.
it changes it. You almost don't see this anymore
Mm-hmm.
because their inner self is so much more beautiful than than what society standards might say this is.
Mm-hmm.
So that inner working is key. It's key, that loving self, discovering self-worth, cultivating that, um, having a certain disposition,
Mm-hmm.
that is key to everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it has so much more influence on the vessel than we
Mm-hmm.
think it does,
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. Okay. Did you want to share anything else about adorning or beautifying?
I just encourage women, period, to, if they haven't already defined for themselves what
Mm-hmm.
their standard of beauty within themselves looks like or needs to look like, that we give ourselves that opportunity and that blessing to do so, because we are, again, the point I'm just making about
Mm-hmm.
the inner beauty coming out is so very, very vital in whatever this expression offers the world, And the sooner we can become comfortable with the skin we're in, become comfortable looking at there's a t-shirt I created years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it says, um, perfectly flawed. No, it says beautifully complex,
Beauty complex.
perfectly flawed,
Mm-hmm.
100% woman.
I like
That
that.
perfectly flawed is the part we want to embrace.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at what we perceive as these flaws in ourselves that we think is opposite of what beauty is, and embrace it as your beauty mark, or as this unique aspect of you. If we can do that, if we can really embrace that, and then do that inner work of loving ourselves, defining ourselves.
Uh-oh, it froze. Sis, you still there? Just as the conversation was getting great and juicy, it gets tech gremlins invade, and now the screen has a frozen. So just bear with us a moment, family of light who are watching, and hopefully Netfah will return. Um, let's take a short, brief break. Welcome, family. We had some technical difficulty. We lost Queen Netfah, but nevertheless, we I want to thank you all for joining this evening and for talking with us and staying tuned and participating in this discussion about the price of beauty, the high price of beauty, and redefining our beauty standards. And all of us have to really make sure, like she mentioned, have knowledge of self. And in having knowledge of self, part of the knowledge of self is knowing who you are and knowing your value. That is the most important part. Not only knowing who you are, but knowing your value, knowing your worth, and knowing that you are an amazing, beautiful person inside and out. If there's any aspect of you that you don't find desirable, that's something that we all have to work on and can work on, whether it's the weight, um if you need to enhance your teeth, or your smile, or whatever. All those things are things that you can work on and achieve, but the most important thing is your having your self-worth, your self-esteem, and value on yourself. How do you feel about yourself is so important, more important than what society standards are. So I hope you all enjoyed this evening's broadcast. It was very important conversation to be had, I thought, and especially in light of the time that we're living in, when so many people feel the need to take some drastic measures when it comes to enhancing their beauty, and it's often dictated by society. They feel that they have to look a certain way or be a certain way in order to be attractive. And we all should be focusing um, more as spiritual beings on that inner light, that inner beauty that is within each and every one of us, and cultivating that so that we can be the outward expression of that beauty that dwells within us. And with that said, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. And we are at a new time right now, 9 p.m. now on Mondays. 9 p.m. Some changes in my schedule. So we're going to be doing all lives now at 9. And I will see you all hopefully Wednesday. Looking forward to it. I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful, peaceful, joyous um, week ahead, and enjoy this new moon energy in Taurus. And we will see you all again soon. Peace and love.